Coming up on the chat room, what will students need to ensure lifelong academic and professional success? How can parents help children achieve their highest potential? We'll explore these questions and more on this edition of the chat room. Hi, and welcome to the chat room. I'm your host, Elaine Canellis. Joining me in the studio today are two of America's top teachers. Michael Geisen is the 2008 Oregon Teacher of the Year and the National Teacher of the Year. And Dorothy Goff-Goulet is the 2009 DoDEA Teacher of the Year. And she will be competing in the National Teacher of the Year title later on next year. Welcome to you both.
Thanks.
Let's begin with the issue of 21st century schools, Mr. Geisen. American students of today have to prepare themselves for working and living in a global environment, and you're preparing those students in the classroom. How do we transform our classrooms to align them so that we can deliver the students with the 21st century skills they need personally and professionally to succeed in the future?
Well, I think 21st century skills are often seen as sort of a new set of things that we need to do. But in essence, it really comes down to good teaching and really valuing students as human beings. And what I mean by that is that it really starts to look at students, I guess, as not just analytical, fact-gathering creatures, as we've often treated them in the past, but it looks at the human side of creativity and innovation and problem solving and collaboration and world literacy, basically, of seeing the big picture. And what that comes down to is it's just good teaching. And so when we talk about 21st century skills, we don't get there by looking backwards and doing the same things that we've been doing for a long time. And it doesn't necessarily come from just putting more technology in our rooms. What it really comes down to, I think, is developing that creativity that is natural in students and allowing them to learn in those ways, because that's the world they are moving into. In fact, that's the world they're creating for themselves, is a world where the United States, I think, has a unique niche in the world market where we can, I think, based on our culture and our history, develop that creativity in students and innovation instead of squandering it.
Can you tell me about some innovative teaching initiatives you've brought to your classroom?
Sure. I don't stick to traditional ways of teaching. I teach middle school, and so I think to myself, what would a middle schooler want to do today with the fact that here's the big concept that we're trying to learn during this unit or this week? And I sort of let my mind go and say, well, if I were a middle schooler, I wouldn't want to just sit in my chair and read it out of a book or do a worksheet. So what else can we do? So I teach science, and so we do a lot of hands-on labs and that kind of thing, but we also do a lot of projects, building things, creating things. We do a lot of theater in my classroom, which, for a science classroom, you think, well, science and theater, but acting out scientific principles where students play the parts of bits of space dust and act out how gravity works, or natural systems. We do use a lot of art. I write a lot of music, songs about scientific concepts, and so I see myself as a creator of things and allow that to inspire students to do what they do best, and that's create.
And how do the students react to some of the surprises you throw at them besides the traditional book and worksheet?
For most of them, it's a welcome change to a lot of what they're used to in schools. Because, it's interesting. I took one day and followed a student around for the entire day, and it was an interesting process to go through, because I thought to myself, wow, I don't think I would make it through a whole day, much less 12 years of this. And I teach in a really great school, but man, it's a lot of work to get through that much sitting and getting. So most of them react quite well. I pull my guitar out and they're, oh, geez, not again. And okay, I won't. No, sing. And so It's generally a lot of fun. Kids enjoy it, and they get motivated and inspired and engaged in what we're doing. Not every kid every day, but you know, it's enough to call it a pattern. Yeah.
Ms. Goulet, what comes to mind when you think of innovative teaching in DoDEA classrooms, in your classroom? What comes to mind for you?
Well, I think there are a lot of really simple things that we can do that we can actually call it innovative. I think breaking that, you know, like Mike said, the traditional teacher-focused classroom, I think we have to flip that on its side and actually make the student the center of the universe and really, you know, students don't learn as well when you tell them things. They learn when you teach them, and they don't learn by watching. You can't teach them by just showing them. They have to actually do it. And I think, you know, we as DoDEA teachers, we have a unique perspective because we are overseas in a lot of situations. And, you know, I'm a French teacher, and my school is half an hour from the French border. And that, you know, I'm so lucky because I can, you know, teach them just enough to go to the grocery store in France on the weekend and tell them how many of something they want to get, and their parents are amazed that, you know, they can go to France and my 7th grader can order up some bread. And you know, those are the kinds of experiences that our military kids overseas are really so very lucky, and we have that unique perspective, and that's some real simple innovation that we're just lucky to have right, you know, in our laps.
You've both alluded to inspiring and motivating students through what you do innovatively in the classroom. I'd like to ask you, what inspires you about teaching, Mr. Geisen?
I actually didn't start, I never wanted to be a teacher, actually, and that would never cross my mind. I graduated with a degree in forest management and spent several years working as a forester, and only came to teaching later in life. Which I know I look like I'm 12, but this is a second career for me. And what motivated me to make the change was that I really wanted something that I could be passionate about, and that would get me out of bed in the morning. And I still have a really hard time getting out of bed in the morning because I'm not a morning person. But I do, you know, when the first student comes into my classroom, you're on, and there's the creative process of creating every day. There's the relational aspect, just getting to hang out with 12-year-olds, which I know for most people sounds like a nightmare, but like it's fun. And then there's the sort of the academic and the fact that I'm still constantly learning and keeping my curriculum up to date and learning from students and learning from other sources as well. I mean, it's just constant creation of new things, and for me, that's inspiring and motivating to keep me going.
Ms. Goulet, how about you? What inspires you about teaching?
Oh, so many things. I also did not want to be a teacher. 14 years ago, I went kicking and screaming into my first classroom of high school seniors who were not that much younger than myself. And, you know, there were many moments when I really almost didn't keep going. And one of the things that inspired me to continue, you know, 10 or 12 years ago is when, you know, as a foreign language teacher, I taught high school French, and the progress is so obvious that, you know, that's really inspirational. You can see the gains because they're actually doing it's performance based. So it's communicative, and you can actually, you know, get a kid to, you know, order in a pretend restaurant in your classroom, and you hand them some cheese and they're just happy as can be. And so, you know, that's inspiring. And you know, one of the things I love about being in the middle school classroom with 13-year-olds or so is you know, the interaction it's like a performance every day, and I love that, and I think that's fun, and you know, I'm never bored, and that my number one goal every day is that if I am bored, we're all in trouble. So I am inspired by the fact that they're never bored, and that's great. And it, you know, Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if we're having a really lively discussion and the bell rings, it's the weekend, you'd think everybody would just want to run out of there, but, you know, 20 hands are in the air, and, you know, they all, at the sound of the bell, go, "Aw," and you think, "Are you crazy? It's Friday, go!" But that inspires you for Monday. I mean, you're really ready to go on Monday, and you think, "Wow, I can do this." this is good. So there are so many inspiring moments, and you know, and as a high school teacher, there are different kinds of inspiring moments. But middle school, what a place middle school is, and the inspiration is just a never-ending story. So there are so many opportunities to be inspired as middle school teachers. So we're very, very lucky people to be middle school teachers. Well, crazy, but
That too.
very
yeah,
lucky.
yeah.
From both of your perspectives as top teachers, what advice would you have for parents to help students in any way they can to achieve and attain their goals? Mr. Geisen?
As a parent myself, you know, what it comes down to, I guess, is really demonstrating to your kids that life is continuous learning. And I think that's probably the most important thing that parents can do is to model the continuous learning that needs to be happening at whatever level. And it can be very practical things, you know, around the house or in the community. It can be, you know, career-based or whatever. But I guess just modeling that joy of always learning. Because, you know, you can't always help your child with their homework. You know, you know, you're not going to be able to remember certain things about trigonometry or whatever when your child comes to help you. But and that's oftentimes what you think, like, well, that's my job as a parent, is to help my student or to you know, do their project for them, right? But I think the most important thing to do is to realize that you, as a parent, are teaching your child every day. I mean, you're the most important teacher they have. You're the first teacher they had and the most important teacher they have, the one that sticks with them through the entire thing. And I guess as a teacher myself, what I try and do is continually model the fact that I am always learning. And that is, I think, the most important thing that you can do.
Ms. Goulet?
My wish is that, you know, parents would very actively, you know, take part and keep lines of communication open. But and as a teacher of military students, I know they can't always be visible. We have so many parents that are downrange, that are, you know, they're on temporary duty, you know, thousands of miles away so much of the time, and you know, that we have a different set of stresses on our students in DoDEA. But we are doing some things, I think, that will help keep those lines of communication open. And you know, the world is such a cool place now. You can keep those lines of communication open so much more easily than you used to be able to do. And so we encourage, and I actively encourage parents to just keep that safety net. You know, help me hold it in place. You know, I can only do my strings one direction, and I'm going to need those other ones. Every once in a while you do. So just that communication piece is so critical sometimes.
Thank you. We've talked about how you feel how parents can help and how you use innovation, how you inspire students, and what inspires you about teaching, and going to the bigger picture with your thoughts on some things. Mr. Geisen, today we've got a lot of issues facing schools. We've got high-stakes testing, we've got accountability, budget issues certainly are affecting schools. How do you think this affects our schools and our students, and what's at stake for our nation with keeping continuous improvement going in our schools and the classrooms, and helping students achieve all they can be?
That's a big question. And I wish I knew the answer. And you know, I think it's a huge system, and that's one thing I'm realizing this year as I travel, that things don't change easily, but they do need to. And I think what it comes down to is that we need to not revert back to comfortable ways of teaching. We are in a data-driven and high-stakes world, and I don't think that's going to go away too quickly, even with the change in administration. I think what it comes down to, though, is that as teachers at the classroom level and as administrators at the school level, there are still very, very effective ways to teach the content that we're being required to teach in innovative and creative ways. and on a very small budget. I mean, a middle school budget, oftentimes we kind of get the shaft. We don't have a whole lot of money, and so, but it's possible to do. And what it comes down to is being bold enough and courageous enough to teach in ways that we know and that research actually show are more effective at really changing students' lives. And I guess there's this focus on, well, we got to get test scores up. We got to make sure that they're learning this standard, this standard, this standard. I think to the detriment of our students in a lot of cases. Now, standards are obviously a good thing. We need them. We need certain things that students should know. They should be able to do. But when it really crushes their curiosity or their natural creativity, that's not worth it. So I guess finding ways to be bold and courageous in the way that we teach, and realize that if we do those things, not only will we inspire our students, but we also will see the kinds of gains that we hope to on standardized tests as well. And we're seeing that in my science department. Our scores have gone from just over half of our students meeting the state benchmarks to now, in the last several years, we've gone from there up to over 80%, which is great. And I teach in a rural, poor community, and that's a big deal. That's huge, and we're proud of that. But we also realize that that's not everything. You know, not only do we still have another 20% to go, but we also have the responsibility to inspire our students to want to do science. If we teach our students to learn science and to know science, that's great, but if they want nothing to do with it when they leave our classrooms, we failed. And we need to broaden our perspective and to quit enshrining such a narrow view of what intelligence is, and start to broaden that, and again, I guess just be bold and courageous enough to teach in ways that value the whole child, and know that the part that gets measured will increase. It will help it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Goulet, in DoDEA schools, certainly, we've got issues such as continuous improvement and data-driven decisions and highest student achievement guiding what we do. Mm-hmm. How do those overarching principles affect what you do in the classroom? How do they affect the students and you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I personally operate under the concept of continuous improvement. I think I need to be energized and I need to be refreshed. And I think I've said it before. A refreshed and energized teacher is what every classroom needs and what every student mm-hmm. deserves to have. And really, when you talk about what's at stake, I think through doing education right and being committed to continuous improvement, and moving with the speed of society as educators, we can ensure that our generation of students stays free. They think for themselves, and that makes certain that, educators above all other professions, in my opinion, are what keep a free country free. Because if you don't learn to think for yourself and to think, creatively and to create your own world, then other people will do it for you. And so it's a great gift, and we have, not only a professional obligation to make certain that we move at the same pace as the rest of the world, but we have really, in a lot of ways, a moral obligation too, because mm-hmm. if we can do it, we must. So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah. I mean, and everything is at stake. It's a civil rights issue. It's an economic security issue. It's really keeping America what it is. Mm-hmm. And America doesn't have to be on top. Most societies eventually fade from power, and without a long-term view of where that's heading, that's the issue. That's the concern, and I think education is definitely the answer to that.
Thank you. It is definitely a serious high-stakes issue, and we appreciate your views, especially as top teachers out there in our classrooms, and taking us today on your opinions and your experiences from the classroom to your personal experiences, and then applying them to how they affect the world. And we really appreciate you both being here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Elaine. Appreciate it.
You can learn more about the National Teacher of the Year program by clicking on the website below. I'm Elaine Canellis. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time in the Chapel.